Hi everyone, I'm Krista McNamara, Content Channel Director with Motor Age Magazine. So enhancing the technology that you use in your shop on a daily basis may seem like a challenge. It can be very time consuming and difficult to learn new processes and train your staff, and also software implementations and updates can be expensive. But overall, the enhanced efficiency, knowledge, and productivity that you can gain by increasing your shop technology far outweighs the negatives and, more importantly, can have a major impact on your profitability. So I have with me today three shop owners who have really bought into the technology wave and are seeing the benefits in their shops. So joining me today are Jim Bennett. He's the owner of Bennett's Automotive in Smyrna, Tennessee. Brad Pellman, who's the owner of Pellman's Automotive in Boulder, Colorado. And Judy Haglin with Haglin Automotive, Inc., also in Boulder. And they're here to give us their real-world stories, opinions, and just advice on how getting on board with technology is really no longer a choice. It really is a necessity today. So we're going to start with Judy Haglin. Can you tell us a little bit about the technology that you're using in your shop and how long you've been using it?
Absolutely, Krista. We went to Mitch in 2005. That was the very first technology with our management software system. And then we have slowly added on things like ALLDATA, Identifix, IATN. Recently we just did, we have MotoLogic that we have added where our technicians can look online and find out what different issues they have. And then there's Bolt-On, which integrates with Mitchell, where we've gone paperless, where the technicians can communicate with the front, and they've just done a really good job at taking it on and what's the word I want? You're going to have to cut this part out, to where they've grasped onto the concept and really find that the technology has helped them be more efficient in their day-to-day operation.
Great, okay. And Jim, what about you? What are you using in your shop?
Well, we started back in the 90s, just going from handwritten ROs to the management system. CarQuest, came in with us and their systems, and then we started going with the Mitchell, with the disc, the CDs, and we're just like neck deep in technology now. With every technician has a laptop on their workstation. We used to have one workstation, and they would have to take turns whether they wanted information or they wanted to go online, which at that time there wasn't much online. But instead of having people stand in line waiting, we have everybody has a laptop on their workstation now, so they can go into the management system. They can go onto the Bolt-On. Everybody has their tablet with Bolt-On. We have where they can join in with any of the information. They can Google things. They can go YouTube stuff. See how other people are making that repair. The whole Identifix, everything is online, and it's not disk anymore. Everything comes over our Wi-Fi network. So, all the way up through the diagnostics where we used to, blink out the codes. We've got just laptops with the OEM shop, the diagnostic tools, the IDSs, the MDIs, that kind of stuff. Everything we can do technically, we'd rather do with the Bolt-On. We do the electronic inspections, and we can email our customers, or we can text it to them. Just when we have an estimate, we call the customer. If we can't get a hold of them, then a text is sent. That's pretty much it.
And Brad, what about you? What are you using?
Again, we used a lot of the same products that have been mentioned. We've been with Mitchell now for 18 years. We grew with Mitchell through the disc period, and now to their online, and all the way to we're using their latest version at this point. All of our technicians have tablets, laptops. Our service staff and the counter has tablets for check-in process. We use Bolt-On technologies, Auto Vitals, Virtual Vehicle, MotoLogic, IATN, Bolt-On. All of these things have combined to the one thing that I think I would add that hadn't been mentioned is the need to really increase and have great high-speed internet access, because we're really using that bandwidth. And really what we're talking about with all of this technology and data is how can we communicate faster and better inside our buildings and with our customers.
Okay, well, Brad, you touched on a little bit of my next question. Obviously, all of you are using, a great amount of technology. What are some of the issues that these systems and, these pieces of software help you to accomplish? What are some of the challenges they've helped you overcome? Jim, why don't we start with you?
Well, the one good example is like the Hawkeye alignment machine that we get from Hunter. Before we could look at a tire, we could check out something, we could tell somebody they need alignment. Now we can, in just a couple of minutes, we can pull it on the rack. We can do the tread depth, the engine codes, the battery life condition, and we can give them a printout. It's got reds and greens, and we can, show the customer what they need as far as alignment. We've with the bolt-on, we were able to email the inspections to the people. We can show them. We take pictures. If we take the wheels off a car and there's metal to metal on the brakes, we can take a picture right there and we can email it to the customer. We can text it to them. It's almost like better than taking them out in the shop and showing it to them. They're still at work or at home, and you get the picture to them so they can see what's actually wrong with their car.
Okay, so improving customer communication, that's obviously a great benefit. Brad, what about you? What were some of the specific challenges that the technology that you're using today has helped you to overcome?
I think the biggest upgrade in using technology that we've seen recently is, and Jim did touch on this, the ability to demonstrate for our customers visually what we see with their car. So being able to take a picture of the ball joint that's bad, or actually shoot a short video of the ball joint moving back and forth, it adds so much value to our process of trying to communicate with the customer what we found with the car, and it takes away the mystery of, or the disbelief in what we're trying to do for them or accomplish for the customer on that day. It's really been huge. It's been an automatic increase in volume, and the comments from the customers is, I love that you sent me that data, that I could see that, I made this decision and now my husband believes me because I can show him the picture, and it's things like that. It's really helping the consumer see what we see when we need them to see it. Quicker authorizations on repairs so that it keeps our day going. It's been a great benefit moving that stuff forward. So.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the increased efficiency and also enhanced customer transparency are great benefits for you and the customer. Judy, what about you? What are you seeing?
Well, I think that the biggest challenge we have as shop owners is getting the implementation. So we've got Bolt-On, which is a fantastic program. They also have a caller ID pop-up box that we use. So as soon as it calls in, a little box appears on everybody's computer that says who it is. You can see if we already have an invoice made for them. If they're an existing customer, you can look up their history. You can make an appointment. You can create an invoice, so that information, that instant information that you get from just the phone ringing to where you know who it is very powerful. But with that, one of the challenges is, how do you change your day-to-day procedures to where you can incorporate all the changes that it offers? One is using it, clicking on the box. The other one that was a big challenge in the back was taking the pictures, getting the electronic inspection. The technicians know that now with Bolt-On, they can actually look at the history of the customer and see if we've ever done ball joints, or see when the last time we did an alignment, or if we ever did a timing belt. They can actually, it's instant, as Brad said, which is powerful. It saves many times where they're not coming up to the front and asking my service writers, hey, can you look up history on this? When did we last do it? Saves steps. We've got it's a very long shop. It saves many, many steps during the day. But I think that implementation and knowing what you want to get out of the product is really key. So whenever you look at a new product, what are the features and benefits that you want to use? Highlight those, and then pick one a week and make sure that you add something in new every single time.
That's great advice. Now, in terms of the aha moment, what made you look around your shop one day and realize we need to make a change here? We need to do something different. Anything in particular? Brad, what about you?
I think in general what we saw was we felt like we were really doing everything we could inside our building with our processes, doing it the old way, and we just felt like there was still the ability to improve. And then we live in this community, which is Boulder, Colorado. It's highly technical. So we're trying to communicate with people that want to be communicated with the most advanced styles of communication. So everybody's got a smartphone in their pocket. We have a lot of intellectuals in our area. They're all sitting in front of computers. So the decision was watching technology develop. You know, we've always jumped in the pond right away with what's new, because we feel like this is what our consumers in general in our area in particular are really, that's how they're communicating and that's how they're used to communicating. So I think the biggest benefit to using the new technology for us is staying up to date and being in step with our clients and where they are in their lives and how they communicate. So, you know, MotoLogic certainly did that for us. A lot of other companies are doing that, AutoVitals and stuff. It all gives us this internet presence that we never had before. Jim had mentioned, you know, he's starting out where they used to handwrite ROs. We did the exact same thing, and it's hard to even believe that we did that back in the day, and to even think about shops that may still be doing it today is hard to believe. But yeah, I think we're really talking about how people communicate today in today's world, and it's how they receive information, how they're going to get information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, swayed off the topic.
Now, Judy, you're in the same geographical area as Brad. Are you seeing the same thing in your customer base?
Yes. As Brad was talking, I'm writing notes, and we're in a TechNet council together. So Brad, Elisa, Dana, and I, we meet once a quarter. We always talk about a lot of the business stuff. So a lot of the early adopter programs that are out there, when they come in and we first look at it, everybody kind of talks about it. What do you think? What are the features, benefits? What's the advantages? What do you think is going to be good? So that being able to talk with someone in your own area is very helpful for us, because it keeps us really on top. And we challenge each other. One of the big challenges is, how do you stay connected with all of your customers? And retention is huge. And I think that a lot of this technology that we now have at our fingertips has really helped in that retention market. And Boulder we've got University of Colorado. We're fairly transient here. We've got 30,000 people that come in and out twice a year. So we do have to work on that with technology. And I agree with what Brad said. Everybody has their cell phones. We're finding that they prefer text versus email. So that has changed. And if we can't keep up with how the best way to communicate with our customers, it takes longer to get authorizations, to get their approvals, to communicate anything that we need to get their cars done in an efficient manner, because they want their cars back.
Jim, what about you? What made you want to make a change in your shop?
Well, I think it started when CarQuest first came to the TechNet program, and they're like, we've got this business development fund. We can get you a computer. You can start doing this. And I was like, you know, how am I going to pay for that? How is that going to make everything more effective for me? How can that increase my profits? And it was a real struggle for me to make that decision, because computers were a lot of money back then. You didn't buy a laptop for $500 back then. And as we started moving in that direction, and I realized that I could put a lot more information on the customer's invoice about their car, so then I would have it for my records. I wasn't spending time filing hard copies anymore and then trying to look them up. That hard copy never got lost or put in the wrong place. I could keep up with the customers, their records and things, and that was a lot better. And I could actually read the invoices after I wrote them. You know, it was getting to the point that I was going fast and scribbling, and sometimes I couldn't even read my own writing the next day. But I think the real aha moment came when my wife and I were going on a trip somewhere, and I was waiting for her, and I was reading one of the trade magazines, and it was talking about some West Coast shop had put laptops in all this technicians' toolboxes or workstations, and that was going to be the future. And I just told my wife, I said, that's me. I said, I want to be on the leading edge. I want to be at the forefront. So that's when we started getting laptops for the technicians, and then all of a sudden I didn't have technicians in my office trying to share my computer while I was trying to do an invoice. They were trying to look up the torque specs, and then, you know, I had bought another desktop for the technicians, and then all of a sudden, you know, there was a line in the shop, and all of a sudden it was playtime because they were coming in the air conditioning, getting in the information system, waiting their turn. And now they all got it out in the shop, and nobody's ever in my office looking up something. The old computer's still behind me, but nobody ever uses it anymore. So I think the real aha moment is when we went to the laptops in the shop with the Wi-Fi network.
Well, obviously, you know, enhancing your technicians' efficiency is always a huge added benefit. And, you know, speaking of the technicians, if they and the rest of your staff are not on board with technology, it's pretty hard to get it off the ground. How did you guys work with your staff to lead them to embrace these changes that you wanted to make? Judy, can we start with you?
Sure. The technicians actually created the checklist that we use, and then actually we talked about the canned jobs that we put in to bolt on. So we've really kind of made our technicians and our service writers that team that we talk about what are the changes and how are we going to make it happen. The technicians were very excited. The big plus for them was they all got their own tablets. And on their tablets, they're able to, it's kind of what's in it for them. They stream their own music, so that goes from car to car as they're kind of traveling around. They have all the information at their fingertips. They've got the ALLDATA, they've got Motoshop, the MotoLogic that they use. They've got IATN, Identifix. They can look up Google. They can look up YouTube videos. Everything pertaining to the car. They can instant message the front. The front can instant message them. So the big perk for them was everybody had their own tablet. And some of them actually take their tablets home and use it for some of the online study courses that we've got with the TechNet program. So it was an easy buy-in for our techs, but we also have a very young crew. One of the interviews that I always ask any of our staff is, what kind of a phone do you have, and how many apps do you have on that phone? And that lets me really know, are we into technology or are we not into technology? And that is very important. If you've got somebody that's got a flip phone, you might want to think about that. The older generation, and I consider myself an older generation person, you've got to look at what's out there on the horizon, what's changing. Is the tablet going to be an old tool in a year from now? So you always have to be kind of looking up and out versus looking in and back with that.
Jim, what about you? What ways did you use to try to encourage your staff to be on board?
Well, my people really think technology is cool and they like the new stuff. So getting laptops, they like that. They like getting the tablets. Now, it was easier with the front counter using the tablets. The kickback I got on that was, you know, the customer's more accessible on the curb when they're at the drop. You can get up off your stool and walk out there. You don't have to be locked into your station now. You can go out there and get the mileage, get the tag, you know, decode the VIN from right outside the door instead of having to go write all that stuff down and bring it in. That took a little effort to get them off their stools to go out there. They were used to having everybody walk in the door and greeting them and then getting their information. But then they went to in the shop, the kickback, we're already doing courtesy inspections, but I guess it was pretty easy to pencil whip stuff. But when you start requiring so many photographs per inspection, at least to make sure that they were going through the process instead of just clicking off the green arrows, that seemed to be a little bit of resistance. And with the alignment, they don't like that when you tell them it's a free alignment inspection, or free courtesy inspection. They want to know how they're going to get paid for that. But with the free alignment inspection, you got to try and sell your technicians that we're not digging for dollars. We're trying to provide a service to our customers. They come to us and they come back to us because we're taking care of them. We're telling them what they need, not seeing how much money they have in their account that they can spend.
Now, Brad, what about you? What was the response from your staff?
Well, I don't know that. Okay, so I think that our staff, my staff in general, I have a lot of long-term employees. So they're older technicians, not old, but in they're not millennials either. And I agree with what Judy said about looking for younger employees, younger people to fill your positions because they do understand technology. But that also leads to inexperience sometimes, and so it's kind of been this trying to find the right balance of the right person, and certainly our younger generation grasps the technology quicker. So the way we describe it, and Judy's gonna smile when I say this, is it's a J curve, and you adapt new technology and everything drops down, and before it comes back up and you start to see an improvement with it. It was great because MotoLogic themselves actually came in and did a training for us, helped get everybody on board and understand the systems right away using the tablets. We are constantly impressing the need to always have good pictures with anything that you feel needs to be addressed on the vehicle, because without that we can't get that. So before, we were always writing our estimates on the invoice themselves or on the tech worksheet. And the thing about that was that each technician had their own style of writing that out. So my service staff at the counter all had to adapt to each individual technician, and sometimes one service writer wouldn't want to help this technician because he didn't like the way he wrote things down, and another one wouldn't want to help this one because they didn't understand couldn't read his handwriting. And what MotoLogic brought to us was a uniformity, where now we have inspections where when they check the box, it automatically populates a revision saying, hey, you need a brake flush, and that's already written out by our service staff the way we want it to appear on the work order. So it takes away a lot of steps, but it creates a uniform process that always looks the same to the presenter of the work order, as well as like if they have if they find something that's not in the checklist that needs to be done, there's a certain script at the bottom that is then used, and then that comes up to our service staff who can quickly spell check it, make sure it's understandable before it goes out to our technician or out to our customer on the other end. It took a while to get them to buy into the process of using the tablets. Honestly, their response was, "Oh, it's taking me longer." They weren't seeing the value, but the funny thing was we could go, well, look, you're getting paid more because we're selling more of your work. You keep saying that it's taking longer, but it's actually not, and you're making more money. You're benefiting from this. So that was part of the J curve, getting them to adapt and realize, oh, this is a good thing. And then we even reached a point at one point where they're like, well, we weren't quite ready. We jumped in with MotoLogic very early, with Bolt-On very early, and so we weren't quite really set up as well as we could have been. So we actually started to adopt back to a paper technology for a certain point where the technicians would write things down. But what we found when we did that was the technicians realized they didn't want to go back to paper. They actually liked the format of the tablets and using it better, and it made our front staff realize, hey, they're on board. Let's get this going. Let's really jump in and go with it. And Judy actually helped us a lot. Came over and helped us set up our stuff better. We worked together, and it's really was just great. I mean, it's working great for us now.
You mentioned a little bit of the disconnect, how your tech's bought in maybe a little bit faster than the counter. So is there a big difference that you're seeing between how your counter people versus those in the bay adapted?
Well, it was the counter staff had the buy-in all the way. They love it because they immediately saw the advantages in working with the consumer on the front end. It took away all this questioning of, they didn't feel like they had to convince the customer that they needed a ball joint. They could just show them. So it made their job much easier. And but it was the back half of the business, the production side, that really didn't see that benefit because they're not up there communicating with the customer. They didn't see how it had changed things. So technicians are a little bit ornery sometimes. They don't want to necessarily make change, but you keep on them, and we had to show them the benefits. And the funny thing is that we had reached a point where we thought we were going to make a consolation for them and jump backwards, and when we did that, they weren't on board anymore. They were like, no, we like the technology, we're going to stay with it, let's do it. So that's kind of how it went in our shop.
Judy, what about you? Did you see any difference between buy-in from your countermen versus those in the bay?
I think the buy-in, because we do have a fairly young crew, I think the buy-in was there. Everybody was excited about it. But what I'm kind of seeing now is, especially when we talk with Brad and Lisa a lot, we talk about what things are working. They're using it more in depth on some things than we are, like on pictures. And Jim mentioned that, how many pictures are we requiring? So when you look at and you get any kind of computer software program, you get it in, it starts to work, you're seeing benefits, and then you have to get really what's going to work the best, how is it enhancing their job performance, and then what other ways can we use that tool. Pictures is a really good example. I would love if Bolt-On would do video. That would even be better because that would show the bolt joint really not working. But the pictures are huge. Being able to incorporate into your systems that when you get the inspection up front, it has all the pictures, you can text or email that to your customer and say, hey, I'll be giving you a call shortly to go over what the inspection has shown. So when you first get you're just doing the basics, and then you dig in deeper and find there's more ways to take advantage of all the technology that we have really at our fingertips. It's kind of like when people say when you buy a computer, you use about 10% of it, kind of like our brains, we only use 10%. So it's a matter of how do you get, everybody gets familiar with it, everybody goes, okay, we can do this, and then you add what's the next step, and then what's the next step. And then you want to look at what the end result with your customers, are they using it? Is it a benefit? Are you making more sales? Are your technicians and service, are they communicating back and forth in a better fashion? Handwriting, as Brad said, can be horrible. We had some text that you could barely understand what they wrote. This really does systemize it to where when the service writer gets it up front, they're absolutely looking at the same information, same data, written the same way from 4 different technicians, which is a huge time saver for the people up front. So, does that answer the question there?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So now, obviously, improving your processes and efficiency on the back end is a major benefit. But what we really need to do is make sure that we're bringing in more customers. So are there ways that you guys are using this technology to help bolster your customer base? Jim, can we start with you?
Well, now we can do, email blasts, or we send out. We started doing a customer retention thing years ago, and it was automated. Somebody else was doing it. I did it myself first, and then I got away from it, and I was having somebody else do it, paying them, and then they would do direct mail and things. And then I got to thinking, the old way we did it, we used to handwrite and sign it, and that was good. So we went back to that way for about a year, and I was like, okay, this is working. I really didn't have I just had a seat of the pants feeling it was working. And then I went back on a CRM again, and all of a sudden now I'm getting people that are through technology. They're getting appointment reminders. They're getting their thank you notes. They're getting a chance to give us a review online. And I was like, well, I guess I was wrong. I thought I could make it more personal and handwrite it, and the handwritten thank you note from the service writer in me. And turns out that wasn't so important anymore. People like get the emails or the text, on their way home they get a text that says thanks for stopping by. They're getting the email, and then they can go on and just give us a review. Just the technology there just seems to be working better. They like the appointment reminders. Before we made them an appointment and hope they showed up. We checked on our Mitchell and saw that, these people did show up, but with the Mitchell sending the reminders, that seems to be a higher percentage of people return when they're supposed to.
So, Brad, what about you? How are you using the technology to help get your customers coming back?
It really is about that communication, the constant kind of contact that you have with your customer. It's the sending out the thank yous and the oil change reminders. It's all that stuff that's really important to do that used to take up a lot of your time because you were doing it either manually in your shop, you were having your sales staff do it, you're handwriting thank yous, you're calling people to remind them, having the ability to use a digital format that could happen on a scheduled basis or a recognition basis based on the customer's mileage. It all happens automatically. So a lot of that stuff is saving us time to then spend more time with our customer in the office with our sales. So, and again, it's that contact of how people are communicating today via text, via email, really more text now than email, but just having that kind of contact with them where you send them a text, they glance at it, they go, oh yeah, that's right, click, they're done thinking about it. They didn't have to answer a phone, they didn't have to talk to you, it didn't run into any other conversations that may have taken up their time because their time is valuable as well. So I think it's the time savings and the communication showing people that we're technically up to date. They appreciate that. That helps them have confidence in us. They come back to us for that reason. Having the ability to give them the ability to review us online, giving them the link saves them time. Giving them quick check boxes so they can tell us if they approve or not, or write a quick comment. All of that stuff can be done from a mobile device, and that's why now we're having increases in those numbers of people that do take the time to review us because it's much simpler for them, and I think a lot of people enjoy doing it. So that's about it.
Yeah, it's great to be able to increase the touch points with the customer without taking away more of your time. Judy, what about you? How is technology helping you with your customer base?
Well, there's as far as the customer base, there's a couple different ways. There's acquisition versus retention, and I know that acquisition, Brad touched on it with the Google reviews. For us, the tipping point was when we made over like 85 Google reviews that we have on there. It really kind of became a referral program versus how the referral program is always like if your friends refer us, that's one of the best ways to get customers in. They've got the instant trust. We found that with Google as well. I get 7 to 10 new customers every single week based on just Google and what we're doing out there and on the programs that we have out there. With pay-per-click and Google, you can actually dial it in to know that I'll use pizza as a really good example. If it's lunchtime, then they advertise pizza by the slice. If it's dinner time, they're advertising pizza delivery. So you can really hone in exactly what customers are looking for on that. The other one is back to that retention. Once you do customers that come in, and you have to have a fantastic you really do have to have a fantastic experience in your shop. I think that technology is great, but we really have to remember, what is that handshake? What is that smile? What does that person sound like on the phone? All of those things, we can't forget those things, because technology just adds to that. If they come in and it's a really dirty shop and the person doesn't greet them very well, they have a bad experience, it doesn't really make any difference what you do with retention. They're not coming back. But on retention, we're looking at actually doing the MotoRev CRM program, which allows the customer, you can do all the regular stuff that we've all agreed on. We all know we're using that. It's the reminders on your oil changes or your recommended repairs. What I liked about MotoRev and what they're kind of coming out with is that you can actually the customer can actually look up what their history's been, what their factory recommended maintenance is, when their next schedule appointment is. They can make an appointment through there. So they have some control as to what they see and what we're doing with their vehicle, which is exciting. The other thing that we've actually just done is we have an Hagelin Automotive app. So you can actually use on your smartphone, you can look up Hagelin Automotive and go to Google Places and download the app, which has some retention pieces in it as well. That's fairly new. So that's another new technology that's kind of out there that's been very expensive for individual shops to get, but the price point's coming down because that's what people are using and needing. On retention, we have touch points. We do about 12 times a year, both electronically, in person. We do thank you notes. We do a 3-day phone call. So we're constantly looking at how do we reach out to all of our customers.
Now, obviously, one of the other benefits of technology is the amount of data that it can gather for you. Judy, how are you using the data that some of these technology platforms are generating to help improve shop efficiency?
Data, how are you collecting data for shop efficiencies? It's a tough question. Anything else? A better answer? Ask that again. What are you really looking for on that?
Well, are there any day-to-day metrics that some of these programs are providing that are helping you streamline? I know customer retention is obviously a huge one in terms of having those automated touch points. Are there any other ways, maybe more in the Bay, that these programs are helping you find what would have been maybe redundant processes? You also earlier in the conversation talked about even the simple reduction in actual physical steps that your technicians have to make to the front and back of the shop. Anything else along those lines?
Sure. The metrics that you kind of talk about, the biggest technology advantage on a lot of the metrics is your software, and we use the Mitchell software. I can actually track how many times a person, it's like a one-time visitor, I can track return rate. You can look at what kind of services we're actually providing. We can look at how many labor hours per ticket, which is really what we're focusing on right now, because your inventory that you have with your technicians is 40 hours a week. It is 8 hours a day. So once your 8 hours have gone and the technician's only done 2 hours, that's an issue. So we post those on the board. We're also looking at some of the new term now is the lean process, where you are saving steps. You are getting to where they're not having to spend extra time on coming up to get parts, of how you, what kind of tools they have and where you have those tools located. We relocated our tire machine and our balancer to the center part of the shop, so they didn't have to walk all the way to the very other end. Same thing with our fluids. So you look at just the efficiencies as far as really based on labor hours per ticket, how many labor hours your technicians are doing, and then the dollars and the sales that you kind of have at the end of the week. But you can drill down on the metrics in depth. I know that with CustomerLink, they actually have a program that does tell you what your one-time visitor rate is. And there's shops that we're like at 51% of our customers is a one-time visit, which seems like a really high number, that if you have 10 customers that come in a week, 5 of those will never return. You got to look at why is that, and you have to look, is it because of the university? Is it how we treated them? And when we delved in, we're Automotive Training Institute with ATI. We're a 20 group with them, and we talked about it. 50% was a really good number compared to some people that were at 75 to 80%. And that's a pretty scary number to say that out of 10 customers that come in, 8 of them will never return. Something needs to be fixed. So there are a lot of metrics that you can start to drill down and make things better in your shop.
Jim, what about you? Any other metrics that you're utilizing to help improve?
I don't know about metrics, but just the efficiency. Just before, if you had to look up the history of a car, you had to find the hard copy, and you had to go back in the file, then you had to make sure you put it back. If somebody didn't file it back, you couldn't find that. Or if you had a stack on your desk because you just hadn't had time to file, then the efficiency of the service writers is much better with a computer and then the mechanics with the tablet. I think the one thing that always sticks out to me, I have this story I always tell, that when I had a technician would diagnose a car and he'd come to me for a Ford Tempo and he wanted this certain part, and I would call the Ford dealer and they go, "We'll have to order that." I'm like, "You have to order it? I mean, how many of you don't sell this all the time?" "No, I've never sold one." He goes, "I got a year's history and I've never sold one of these parts." So I'd go back to the technician and go, "You might be right on your diagnosis, but if you're the only one in a year that's bought this part from the Ford dealer, maybe you should reevaluate your diagnosis." And now we go to Identifix, and if a technician comes to me and says, "I need this widget," and I just happen to double check them on Identifix, I'm going, "That's funny. There's 50 things on Identifix about this other part that does the same thing, and none of this widget that you want fixes it. You just wasted time. You could have went to Identifix first and spit out your diagnosis and got it more accurate." So that's, I think, just efficiency that way. I don't have anything to measure that by, but I definitely know that's working like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, as Brad, Jim, and Judy have all attested to today, embracing technology in your shop can really help to improve overall shop efficiency, technician knowledge, customer communication and retention, and just overall profitability. So this is not just something that's coming, it's not the wave of the future, but really a trend that is taking hold now and one that can really help to drive the success of your shop. So thank you all for being with us today and sharing your stories. I appreciated all of your insight.